All right, Senator Ted Cruz joins us now. Sir, good to have you back on. Big phone call today, lasted almost 2 hours. It's going to be, in my estimation, it looks like it's going to be largely an economic-based treaty, luring Russia in with the promise of a stronger country, I guess. What makes you think that this will work?
Well, listen, I have confidence that President Trump is going to resolve this war. The war in Ukraine needs to come to an end. Yeah. I think the president was exactly right in what he said on Truth Social. This war in Ukraine never would have happened if Donald Trump had been in the White House. This war was caused because of Joe Biden's weakness, his weakness as commander-in-chief that encouraged our enemies. I think it is time for this war to be over, and I think it's important that it end in a way that is a clear and unequivocal loss for Russia. Putin is not our friend. And listen, Russia has lost thousands and thousands of soldiers in this war. They've expended billions of dollars. Their objective was to conquer Ukraine, and they failed in that objective. I think that is important. I also am confident the president's going to end up with a resolution here that is an America First resolution. I'm encouraged, for example, that the president is negotiating a deal with Ukraine for us to get access to their critical minerals. That is good for America. And I think we don't want Russia selling its oil and gas to Europe. We want Europe buying American oil and gas.
Yeah, it's well said. You know, the critics are going to say that Putin is going to play this deal, get the economic advantages, build back up, and then make some kind of an aggression here, that would be in Putin's playbook. That's what he usually tries to do. I imagine that with somebody that's as savvy as Trump, though, and somebody that doesn't like to get played at all, and very worried about that he's not going to let that happen. Do you see in this deal ways that there are checks on Putin's ability to screw around with this deal?
Well, listen, at this point, we don't know the details of any deal yet, and I don't think a deal's been reached, so it's premature to assess that. That being said, I believe in peace through strength. I think the best way to deter a bully is to be strong enough that they don't want to mess with you. There is a reason that no new wars were started the first term that Trump was president. There's a reason Putin didn't invade any countries when Trump was president, and it's because Putin is afraid of Donald Trump. Joe Biden, nobody was afraid of. Not even his own German Shepherd was afraid of Joe Biden. That was bad for America. It was bad for the world. Look, there is a reason, Rob, that nobody goes and studies at the Neville Chamberlain School of Foreign Affairs. Weakness and appeasement do not work, and so I'm glad we again have a strong president. That's what America needs.
Yeah, that's a good line, by the way. But also, I feel like there is going to be, and it is, but there's going to be ways. I think he's going to set it up in a way where there's going to be some sort of reliance. You know, that Russia's going to have to be somewhat reliant on our satisfaction for this to continue to work. And I also think that, as we know, that Trump can just flatline the cost of oil by just pumping the hell out of it and take a lot of wealth out of Russia immediately if he wants to. I mean, there's going to be ways that I think that Trump can kind of control Russia's behavior with a deal like this, is what I'm suspecting it will look like. As you said, we don't have the details yet, but I just don't see them getting into a deal where he's going to be easily duped. You've got Zelensky right now in Finland, which last week announced its 28th military aid package for Ukraine. 28. This one for $200 million in their local currency, and well, actually in the euro, Finland. Finland saying it supports efforts for peace, which means that the euros are sounding a lot different now than they did maybe even just a few weeks ago. They don't want to pay for this war anymore, and now they suddenly sound a lot like Trump does.
Well, and look, I got to say, a couple of weeks ago at the State of the Union address, when President Trump, and by the way, that was the best speech I think President Trump's ever given, but when he said, we are going to end this war, we're going to move to peace, and the Democrats were silent and stone-faced, they would not applaud for peace. They didn't applaud for anything. I mean, they didn't applaud for a 13-year-old kid who's fighting to defeat brain cancer. But on war in Europe, it was striking. The one thing the Democrats applauded for is he said, we've sent hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, and the Democrats all applauded like crazy. And when he said, we're going to end the war and bring peace, they stopped applauding. And he pointed, remember, he called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas as she sat there applauding, yes, forever war, forever war. It is really a bizarre situation where the Democrats have decided peace is now, they're opposed to that.
I don't know how Ukraine became the most important country in the world in Washington. I don't know why we see that flag pin more than we see the United States, and how all that happened. Someday they'll write a book about it, but it is something else. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.